So we did a couple of takes, if I'm going to be a very transparent host. And I am the worst at pronouncing people's names. I think because growing up, Ian was always mispronounced, which always mind boggled me as a young kid. So I'm very self conscious about, and every one of our guests, like yourself, lay it out as phonetically as possible, and I still mess it up. So glad we got that right clip.
Did pretty good. It was the last syllable that got you a little caught up. But Sadlouskos, Brittany Sadlouskos.
Yeah, and you said your the priest at your wedding completely destroyed it. So it's not the first time it's happened.
It's definitely not the first time, and it won't be the last.
Yeah. So I love it. So Food Network, tell me about this obsession, why
Um,
and what.
this is I feel like this is something that people ask you a lot. Like, if you could have any other job in the world, what it would be. And I can just remember to my youngest childhood memories, like watching Food Network with my mom, like on the weekends, and we would watch every show. Ree Drummond was a hero,
Hmm.
one of the OG influencers, right? But I loved Food Network Star, and I've always been this really kind of like performative, theatrical, outgoing person, and I love to cook. And maybe it's like the Louisianian a part of me that makes me want to like cook for other people and entertain in that way. But yeah, I think if I could rewrite my entire career and go back, maybe I could make it. I don't know. I'll never know. I'll never find out. So
I feel like you have that like that aura of you, and you're newer to the out of home industry as it relates to being on stage. You did such a phenomenal job last year representing mid tier regional, which you guys are much larger than what I'm talking about. But you had the opportunity to speak and you killed it. So I could definitely see you being a Food Network host. What would be your go to? So Bobby Flay is all about like that Southwest flair. What would be your go to?
yeah, I mean, the Cajun in me like makes me feel like it would have to be some type of Southern food, but I love my favorite thing to cook is like Italian. I love cooking like a bolognese or a lasagna. I feel like those are like the types of meals that people like come around when I picture like Sunday supper. Like we do like pasta Sunday every Sunday. It's just like our thing in our house. And my little boy, he's 3. Like that kid can put away some spaghetti and meatballs. And so I think for a long time I would have cooked more of Southern, but my husband's from Connecticut, and so his flavor palette was a little different, and so
Mm.
I adjusted. And so I think Italian's probably become more of my specialty now.
Little more salt and pepper and less Cajun
A
spices.
little less Tony's, a little bit more Italian seasoning.
Feel ya. So you and I've known each other for quite a bit, but let's kind of take it back for the listeners. What your as you started your journey, give our listeners where you started, and then we'll gradually get to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is Lamar's backyard. And I went to LSU, and one of my first jobs out of college, I actually started working as a field marketing manager for a QSR chain. Quickly kind of launched me again into this marketing kind of trajectory. And my next job following that was actually as a media buyer at the time was Diane Allen and Associates. Since then, we've rebranded as DAA Media and Marketing, and started out as a media buyer. And from there, really started to work in the QSR vertical. Really developed a specialty there. Ended up having a little bit of a quarter life crisis around 25, and decided I needed to leave Louisiana, and so I moved to Chicago. So,
Oof.
really warm weather. I was fully prepared. And I started working as a video buyer on another big QSR brand account. And so continued kind of my media career there. Ended up doing a little bit of a boomerang back to DAA in 2016. And I've kind of worked my way up through the agency, as came back as a senior media buyer to a media director, and my most recent role was as vice president of the company. And last year I've promoted to chief operating officer, and so I work really closely now alongside of our 2 agency owners, and really trying to redefine and grow our agency kind of into the future. So I'm really excited about it and have really enjoyed my career here. But I've been at DAA now for the second time now for almost 10 years.
Yeah, and you're definitely underscoring the impact that you've had on the agency itself. It's been fun for me to watch your personal growth, your career growth simultaneously, and it's And Nancy's a very close friend of Lamar and myself and the relationship. So yeah, this is unique because of the proximity, I think. So our corporate headquarters for our listeners is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and all the executives sit here, the operations side, the accounting, legal, the entire suite of folks, around 300 folks, and probably half a mile from here is where DAA is. So we have such a unique relationship. So maybe touch on that a bit. I know one of the unique things that Nancy always talks about, because she's been there so long as well. I'm 20 years, and how long has she been at DAA?
At DAA for, I believe, 30-ish years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're about to make 50 years, so it's been a while.
Yeah, huge milestone. And the story goes is I know she's actually has been relationship with Lamar so long that she actually used to go to the Lamar plant and like actually watch them paint the way that we would
Yeah.
paint the segments of the billboards before we'd go out and post them. So shout out to Nancy for sure. But
Yeah,
maybe
that
kind of
was
give, yeah. So
music.
maybe
That
give
was
your,
actually
yeah,
one of my
definitely.
ongoing experiences was actually going to Lamar and like taking a tour of headquarters. And so that's still something that we do with a lot of our interns and even our entry level employees is like we'll bring them over to Lamar and kind of show them the HQ and see the plant. So it's pretty cool. Still a part of our culture, very much so.
Yeah, I love that. And the relationship, obviously, with one of your clients and the founder and our CEO is extremely tight as well. So it's definitely a unique relationship, and it's been fun for us, not only for your career, but from afar watching DAA itself evolve into something, so magical and so different, and having the impact that it has. But so 50 years. So 2026 this year has been 50 years. That's a massive number for an agency to be around. And a lot of the shops in your universe, they don't last that long. Either they get bought up or they dismantle and become, 1,000 pieces. But maybe touch on that, the DAA story and the growth of from the beginning to today.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that we are so excited to celebrate this year. And so the agency itself was founded in 1976, which in agency years makes us basically a mythological creature at this point. Like,
Without a
but
doubt.
50 years is it's a big number in the business, and like you said, most shops don't make it to that milestone, much less as an independent.
Yep.
And so for us, I really feel like the anniversary isn't about being old. It's just being incredibly intentional and like resetting about what we're good at. And I feel like in an industry that is constantly reinventing itself every few years, it feels like you're entering into a whole nother career probably every 10 years. I think that we're still just genuinely hungry in year 50. And so the way that I like to call DAA is we're a 50-year-old startup. And so culturally, I think we behave a lot like a growth stage agency, but we've got all of this legacy knowledge and an expertise and partnerships that we've built along the way that really have elevated us to success in that way. And so when I say we're more like a startup, we're curious and scrappy and allergic to doing things the same way we've always done just because we've been around forever. And so I think a lot of times when agencies that have been around this long, like they kind of feel very prehistoric, like dinosaur-y, like reluctant to change. And I feel like that's what's really been our difference maker is that we are constantly every day, every week, like revisiting the how do we change, how do we evolve, and how do we keep showing up for our clients. And so the longevity there, I think, has really come from these sustainable partnerships that we've built, not quick wins. And so I think where we really show up isn't in, project-based work. It's really in building these strategic relationships with our clients that allow us to truly understand their business. I want to say our average client tenure is over 15 years. And so our longest client we still have, our oldest client is the Port of Greater Baton Rouge. But we also partner with other pretty large brands like Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers has been a client of ours for 22 years. Window World is another client that we've had for 22 years. And so I think back to, the original days when we started working with Cane's, there were 13 restaurants, and this year Cane's will open their 1,000th restaurant and enter into a whole nother country, going into the UK. And so it's really cool to be around for those for that kind of growth. And I think that that's really helped us sharpen how we think about our own evolution as well.
Yeah, and before I get going to shout out to Donnie as well, who's also one of the co-founders as well, who's a friend of mine, and we cross paths a good bit. With daughter does cheer with each other. But so what I love about it is exactly what you're talking about. Like it in the world of speed and automation, and like what's the next bright and shiny. The way that I think about DAA and the evolution that you guys have had, especially with some of your larger clients, is the word to me that comes to mind is trust. So it's like prove out to me that you can do this small thing. And then over time, what I've seen from afar, specifically with a few of your clients, is just that, continued trust where it's like, okay, I need you to focus on buying out of home. And then fast forward here today, you guys are an omni-channel platform for one of the largest quick service restaurants in the world now. So maybe go a little bit deeper into that. And technology obviously has helped you with that. It's funny because last time I came and saw you in person with the team before you guys came to our office, it was like the space was amazing and you were already busting at the seams. So you're constantly not only reinventing yourself, but you're also bringing in major talent, not only here to Baton Rouge, but also in Miami, and expanding that team deeper. But the trust thing is to me is what comes to mind the most with your relationship with your clients.
100%. And my motto, and I say this till I'm blue in the face, is say the thing. Like I always tell my clients, like I never want anyone to suffer in silence. And I think that so many times the industry gets really, weird about just like calling it out. Like what's the thing that's not working right now? And like allow me an opportunity to fix it, or allow me an opportunity to work on it. And I feel like that motto is kind of spilled into so many facets of our business. So like not only our clients, but then also like our internal teams as well. Like how are we, if we're finding ourselves continuously hitting the same brick wall every week, then let's build a process for it, or like let's build a better system. And so I think a lot of times, especially with independent agencies that are in this growth stage, they are so bogged down, and leadership gets so bogged down in working in the business that they're never stepping out to actually work on the business. And I think that was a big reason why my role really evolved into this more operations focused job, because while I'm still definitely high touch with a lot of our clients, it's still very much, well, somebody has to understand how all of these pieces are working together and how we can show up as a full service solution for our clients. I think a lot of agencies now really productize themselves and say, I'm going to only be your out of home partner. I'm going to only be your video partner. And then you end up where all of the onus of the success falls on the client to basically hold all of these pieces together, right? And so you end up in this kind of like, vendor soup, so to speak. Yeah. And that's another one of those things too. Like I never want to be called a vendor. I always want to be a partner. And so that's a part of our culture, and what we talk about all the time with all of our teams is our job for the agency is to build a place where we can bring people to do the best work of their careers, to give our clients a seamless, you are the hero of the boardroom as a marketing line item in your conversations. And I feel like that relationship and that trust that you mentioned is really what's gotten us there. And so evolution, willingness to change, and not stepping into a place where we're just trying to do the same old thing every year, being able to take ownership when we know we've made mistakes, say the thing, and then just always continuing to keep our people aligned to the mission of what we're trying to do, which is just really great work at the, client agencies and freelancers, whoever, like we're all doing the same thing, right? Like it's about who you are. It's like, why would I tell someone that they want to work with me or work with DAA? It's because of us, the people, because everyone can do media strategy or media investment. It's more so, how deeply do I believe that you care about my business? And I think that has really just been the biggest differentiator for us.
Yeah, I love that phrase, say the thing. Well, because not only internally when you're managing, which I know you manage a big team, oftentimes there's a lot of like anxiety where it's just like, hey, let's just put this out in the open. Mm-hmm. And I think the same is to say as with and you're spot on. Like everyone can do everything. You know, I'm pitched technology all the time in my role, and I'm like, what differentiates you? And
Right.
oftentimes it's the most simplistic thing. To your point, it's like, I really like Brittany. I enjoyed my time. She seems like a very honest person. You know, she has a very creative team. They're very passionate. So I'm going to pick this over this. But go a little bit deeper for me on, you know, the longevity of a lot of these three big clients that you guys have specifically, where I feel like because you had that mantra of like say the thing, and you're constantly, it's not like you're evolving because tech is evolving. It's evolving because the industry as a whole, the brands, we as consumers in general are evolving. And for an outsider looking in that has never worked on the agency side, I think that that's paramount, because now the agency can say like, hey, we're being honest here. Like XYZ agency came in and said that they can do this. I've really enjoyed working with you guys. Can you guys do this thing as well? Does that happen often in your universe?
100%. I
Yeah.
think that like competition is so steep when it comes to agencies, and I think this is where I've really started to see this productization where agencies are trying to find their niche, or like, oh well, this is the one thing we're good at. Well, it's like when I look at our client list, there are definitely some common threads there: retail, QSR, home services, healthcare. Like those are definitely some big areas for us, but like where it boils down to is just having a willingness and a team that is ready to jump in with you and like get their hands dirty and tell you the truth, just saying the thing. And so I think like when we say like, oh, so and so said they could do this, it's like, that's great. Does so and so have the legacy knowledge of like all of the nuances that may come along with your brands? And I think that's when agencies work with clients in a project basis or on these short-term relationships. That's great. It's great for cash flow. It's great for your bottom line. But at the end of the day, is it going to sustain? Is that going to be the thing that allows you to really do your best work for them if you can't understand deeply the challenges that they're facing, or like what's going on in their business? And so I feel like when we look at these long tenured relationships, that's exactly the differentiator that has allowed us to keep them. And it's because we have a team of people or person who just really owns the relationship and spends so much time truly caring. And I think when your client or the brand understands that like their success is your success, and that you view it that way, and that they're not just another, line item to you, then I think that that comes through in every facet of what you do. It shows up in every honest conversation you have, every win, every tough conversation, because everything's founded on that trust to know that like, oh, well, Brittany's got my back, and so she's going to tell me what I need to hear, or they're going to take ownership in this space where they've messed up, because that's just how they operate. And I think that that authenticity is again just something that gets really lost in all of the buzzwords of tech and change and the products and the solutions. It's just like, can we just talk about how we show up as people every day? Because that to me is the game changer. You could have the most amazing products in the world or the best tech in the world, but if I can't stand working with you, that's a barrier that's going to be so much harder to break down. And so that may result in me going to check out the next best solution or like the next partner, because maybe their product isn't as great. But if I can't like you and want to work with you and feel like you have my back and understand me, then it kind of closes the door right off the bat.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as technology, I just got back from CES a couple of months ago, January, and that was a big theme, right? It's like as technology continues to advance, in my opinion, my takeaway was things become a lot easier. And then those relationship and the storytelling becomes the most paramount thing on earth. And I think we as consumers, if we take our agency publisher hats off, we start to evolve into this like very much like cultural, like, hey, I really enjoyed working with this client because they were ethical. And look, you guys as an agency, you also get to say no to clients. Like if you don't like the brand and it doesn't fit. But my point is I think tech is going to continue to create more transparency, and it makes less about what's the differentiator. And the differentiator really starts to be, to your point, that personal touch, the personal relationship. And
Yeah,
I think
I
when
love
we were
what they
prepping,
do.
yeah, and when we were prepping, you'd mentioned the one thing, like having to do the right thing in hard moments.
Mhm.
So I want to go deeper into that question because, you and I are currently working on a project with Out of Home, and look, we're the largest out of home company in the US by far. A handful of your clients utilize out of home, and it's almost like it could just be on auto renewal. But what I love about what you guys do at the agency side, and specifically you, is you push us and you're like, hey, I need X, Y, and Z from you. This is what the client's asking for. Can you do this? And what I love about that is you're challenging the publishers, the vendors, I like to call us partners. And if we don't evolve and we just sit back and we're like, well, yeah, Window World, Port Baton Rouge, Raising Cane's, they always buy billboards. Like, this is an automatic. Hey, Britt, let's just re-sign this contract. But what I love about you is because you're authentic to the client and because you want to have that sustainable partnership, you're challenging us every year. And I love it. Like, I think it's great. You and I rolled our sleeves up on a project and we're still working through it. And that, in my opinion, that's a true partnership, because otherwise we, as the vendor publishers, our sales team, can think like this is auto. And then the next thing you know, it's like they cut everything and you're like, wait, why?
Yeah,
So
I feel like COVID opened a lot of people's eyes to that, right? Like that,
mhm.
the going through that, especially within like the out of home space, those were tough conversations, and that's where we had to just like roll up our sleeves and like get in there and figure it out. And I feel like that's where your partners really shined, right? Like,
Mhm.
can I pick up the phone and can I call my partner at Lamar and say, we've got to have some conversations, and like, how are we going to partner together, knowing that when we come out on the other side of this, like, we've got your back and you've got ours, right? And so I felt like that was a moment where partnership and the root core of trust like really came through. And I think that, like you mentioned, like, if it was as easy as like every year for all of our clients, like we're just like, yep, same plan,
Yep.
sign the renewal, like that would be amazing. But like I mentioned earlier, like every 10 years I feel like I'm reinventing my whole career, right? Because you're just the industry changes so
So
fast. And
fast.
even like today versus last January, I look back and I'm like, how are things changing? What knowledge gaps are we needing to fill? What tools do we need to bring on board? Because everything's moving so fast, which is amazing that the industry is advanced in this way. But it's still very much a struggle, I think, for a lot of people to make sure that they're keeping pace with that. And so when we approach every year, whether it's or every campaign as we're kind of starting fresh, it's like no obligations. Like, we're going to build the best plan. We're going to build the right plan that makes sense. And maybe in this scenario, that means that radio is not going to make the mix, or like we're not going to make it, but because that's what's best for the client. And again, that's where I feel like that ownership on the agency's part of really being able to understand what they need and what they want and what's going to work for their business in that moment is where that's the biggest differentiator. Because I think when agencies and partners, our publishers start to push their own agendas, that's where things start
Yeah.
to fall off the rails a little bit, right? And so yes, it does result in some tough conversations sometimes in places where everybody feels like, I don't understand, you guys have had these boards for years, or what's happening. And like the answer
Mhm.
is that our business needs have changed. The business
Yep.
needs have changed, and like this is how we're going to evolve. And there's that trust that like there's a place and we're open to the conversations and we're always going to be innovating and changing. And like we know that everything is so cyclical that like if this is the conversation we're having today, 6 months from now we might be having another conversation because something can change again. And so I'm a very firm believer in always kind of looking at things from a fact-finding lens of like, I need to know the information, I need to evaluate the landscape, and then I can come back with a very non-biased opportunity. And then I think where your partners and your vendors come into play there is them understanding and respecting based off of the relationship you've built, to know that we're not just trying to be difficult, we're
Yep.
not trying to beat you up over something. It's that this is just where the conversation is guiding us right now, or where the business is guiding us. And then that doesn't mean that it's a closed door. It's just we're going to pivot to this thing right now, which is the best thing for our clients, and we'll always continue to maintain that kind of policy. And so I've always appreciated that about you guys, Ian. About I can pick up the phone and be like, Ian, I've got a problem.
Mhm.
Here's the deal, and then tell me what you've got, right? And I love that open door policy that you guys have always had with us, and I just think it's such a testament to the partnership that we have with you.
Yeah, and it honestly it helps us evolve as a medium based on the demands. Like obviously we know what the consumers are doing, but if our agencies are truly our partners and they're expressing this like, hey, this is where this brand is moving towards, or like, early days as social. I remember those conversations happening where a handful of agencies were like, hey, social is starting to become a bigger uptick.
Hmm.
And if we just said like, we're not social, sorry, then we
Right.
would have never evolved to where we are. But instead, with our dynamic team and our innovative kind of spirit, being a 130-year-old company, we're like, okay, cool. I remember the first ever live streaming tweet that went to our billboard. Like we did
Right.
that because we had very honest conversations with agencies, and it helped us evolve as opposed to the agency just, thinking of us as just like a, hey, can I cut rate? Yes or no? You can't give me the best rate, then move on. Instead of saying like, hey guys, social and YouTube influencers, it's a big deal. So that
Yeah.
conversation happened 5, 6 years ago, and it's really forced us in a positive way to rethink and evolve as a medium and say, all right, how can we evolve here? And I would argue that like there's a handful of legacy media that had they listened to the agencies or the tea leaves,
Right.
they could have survived as well. But instead, it was just like, everybody's always going to buy the back of the newspaper. Like, you're crazy. What's wrong with you? And here we are
Yeah.
today,
Yeah,
So,
for sure. Well, and I think that it's one of the things that I've learned a lot by working in the QSR industry my whole career is that like the brands that win are the ones that know how to evolve and how they show up in culture without walking away from what made them special in the first place, right?
yep.
And so the conversation moves from, you know, my menu stays the same, or like my hamburger is a hamburger. And so how do I make that relevant? How do I bring that through and evolve that messaging or evolve that strategy to be able to still stay relevant in today's economy and in culture where you never know what's gonna take off or what's gonna change. And so I think that like getting back to this idea of like understanding at your core, like what is your core promise? And even as like Lamar, I'm sure you guys have had this idea of like your vision of like, well, what is our core promise? Like we know we're an out of home company, but like how does that translate, and how do we build equity in culture by still remaining true to who we are? And I think like especially for our client Canes, that's what they've been so good at their whole journey. And I think that is really is what has amplified their growth trajectory specifically in the last 5 years.
Yeah. And we'll dive deep into that, but I want to talk about scale, sophistication, and systems. I mean, like I'd mentioned, I came to y'all's corporate office here in Baton Rouge, and you're busting at the seams. So the easy and obvious is like, all right, let's go hire more people and grow. But I loved, as we were prepping, you guys tripled headcount and revenue the last 3 years.
Yep.
So that kind of growth, immediately it's like, let's just hire more people. But what I love, and I want you to dive a little bit deeper into it, it's like it forces you to kind of grow up and not just like expand out quick. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that when you go through that kind of explosive change, it's really easy to take headcount growth, and if you don't have systems in place or very clear understandings of roles and responsibilities, it just turns into chaos. Like
Yeah.
it's just like it doesn't matter. Like everybody can be fully utilized at capacity and we go, okay, great, let's go. We'll hire more people. We'll go. But if you bring those people on board and you don't have a clear path for what they're doing, what they're responsible for, what they're accountable for, that's where things are going to fall apart. And so we've just really had to double down so much on sustainability of the structure of the agency and like really getting into the weeds on this mentality of like right people in the right seats and like understanding, back when I started at DAA, there were 8 of us. And we're still very mid-sized. We have 35 people now across the kind of the southeast, but it's still we've worn a lot of hats. And I think over time, really working with someone and redefining like, okay, you may have come in as a media buyer and like now you've evolved into this role where like now I need you as like our our finance manager. Like we need this to be because this is where you've thrived and grown. And so really reassessing and looking at talent and people as individuals and figuring out from an organizational design standpoint where to plug them in and where to give them autonomy. I think
Yeah.
for me, as I've kind of, again, seen DAA evolve over the past 10 years, it's just been constant change and growth in the sense of the things that I'm doing today that we figured out because we had to live it. And I think when you look at some of like the larger agency models or like a holding company, you have so many decisions being held by very junior team members because there's so much kind of corporate
Yeah.
cloudiness, like to call it,
Mhm.
within it, right? And so I think that's another big differentiator is like making sure that leadership and our very tenured team members are staying super close to our client business, because I don't think that that's something that you can get today in a, in a big holding company relationship, because it's just we're too far removed. And so that is something that, like, even to this day, like, I'm still a part of our client status calls, like I'm still in the conversation, even as kind of like the COO role. I never want to lose that client first mentality. And so we can add structure, we can add more guardrails behind what people are doing day in and day out, but everybody's still revolving around the mission of like, our job is to evolve with our clients and not to react to them, right?
Yep.
And so if we move into that kind of just reactivity mode, then you add more headcount, it's just chaos. And so the past 3 years, we've really just doubled down on trying to figure out how we scale and how we grow and evolve our processes without losing the soul of this small agency. And I think that that's made us really agile and curious. And I think that comes through in a lot of the work that we're doing right now with our clients.
Yeah. And going back to your clients and being at the pulse, but I always say this all the time, like you have the ability to tell the story as opposed to, I won't say what you're trying to say either, but you have a lot of junior people that have 20, $40 million budgets that don't even know what the brand is, let alone
Right.
the history, let alone the history of the agency themselves that they work at. So what I love about, I always say you guys punch way above your weight, because if a massive holdco came in and tried to take some of your major clients, I think it would last about 3 days. And those clients would be like, wait, what? Do you know that we sell windows? Do you know that we sell chicken tenders only? So what I love about it is you guys are able to tell the story. I love, as a COO role, you're allowing your staff to be all things, which as an employee, that's exciting. It's like, I get to be on a call with XYZ client, but then I also get to, be innovative over here, and I get to be creative over here. And, maybe I love spreadsheets, but I think you're spot on. I think as technology continues to evolve, in my opinion, you'll start to see agencies like yourself plateau in the number of employees that you need, and then they really start to evolve. So going back to your point of like growing up, I think that we're at the very infancy of what DAA and what its capabilities are. And I know you and I are working on, the out of home industry, as we are beginning to automate. Like, what a beautiful opportunity for you guys not to, have to RFP out of home, and you're at the pulse again of buying media. And, again, that comes with a very tight partnership, legacy, trust, and relationship, not only just with your clients that you represent, but the publishers itself. And I can't stress that enough, because so many times as a publisher, it's just like, God, I feel like all we do is we're getting beat up on rate or get beat up on this. But those true partnerships are like, let's get collaborative. Like, hey, can we put steam coming off the billboard for, this Raising Cane's chicken? Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. And I know we've done, wild things like that.
Yep. It's all about too, just like everybody just wants to reduce friction, right? And so it's like we joke about this all the time. I'm like, the day that I can go in and check my own out of home avails without having to send an email out and just know in real time if we can do this and what the rate's going to be like. And then same with our clients, like everyone just wants to reduce friction. And so if at the end of the day, like you have clients that are communicating with people who aren't the decision makers, it's, hi, we'll get back to you in 3 to 5 business days, because someone then has to take that information and run it up a chain 4 levels up. And
Yep.
then by the time it reaches that top level, all the context is lost. all of the needs, all of all of the loaded information behind the ask
Mhm.
is gone. And
Yep.
so I feel like when we talk about reducing friction, it is I want to know that at any given point I am one person away from the answer that I need to get.
Yep.
And so when people, I think it's really easy to pass the buck whenever you're surrounded with a team of very competent people. And so ownership and accountability, and then knowing that we can cut through whatever that friction is, whether it's a bad process, a bad person, a bad deliverable, like whatever it could be. I just feel like being able to spot that and figuring out the way to solution, how to build a solution around it is how we're going to evolve, whether that is as an agency or just as as an industry. And so, again, being an independent and has allowed us to be really nimble, and we don't have this bureaucracy, I guess, of
Yeah.
where we have to, level something up 8 chains and I'll get back to you in a few days because my director's on PTO this week and I can't make a decision on my own, kind of thing. So it's just, I think that that's the beauty of it. And I think, again, that adds to what we try to provide our clients with is just that one-to-one model of knowing that they have that support and that it's not disguised by body count or head
Mhm.
count, that it's quality people and not just head count.
Yeah, and that dovetails perfectly into the back half of the podcast, right? When we talk about like nimble, we talk about cultural, you know, culture doesn't wait. Something happens in cultural on social, TikTok, Meta, Instagram, YouTube. Those moments are like people jump all over them quickly. And I think in this new world of media that exists, it's also interesting to watch. So you guys are obviously experts in the QSR world, and your largest client being one of your largest clients being Raising Cane's. You guys have been with them, as you had mentioned, for a very long time. Touch on that a good bit. Like QSR brands have evolved significantly. Like I think about a certain QSR, and they have this really cool, I won't say, but has a really cool iconic logo that like interacts with people on social, and you're just like, wait, I'm just here trying to buy a hamburger, or I'm just here trying to buy chicken tenders, and it's like, you know, and I'll say that the name of the one I'm thinking about is like Wendy's. Wendy's is
Yeah,
hilarious to watch on
yeah,
X,
love
and
the
then
Twitter.
yeah, but so touch on that a good bit. You guys are the experts on the QSR, as I'd mentioned, and Raising Cane's is, and we don't have to go deep into details, but they do such a great job where a lot of these QSRs are starting to become like cultural icon moments, locations. So where has that evolution kind of seen? It's obviously completely different than when you first started working with your QSR client.
Yes, 100%. And this is something that we're talking about QSRs and culture every day. Like this is every day. This is something that we're keeping our pulse on. And um, I've spent a lot of time in this QSR space. And so I started out working for Jack in the Box,
Yep.
and that was like who I was a field marketing manager for. And, Jack in the Box has great commercials. Like they are super funny. Jack himself was super controversial. And I can remember, like, even, this was 15 years ago, that we would have certain commercials that we would run in California because that was really close to where the brand was based. And then there were other commercials, TV commercials, that we would run in the further we got away from the market, right, or from the home base. And that was because people didn't get it in that way, or like it was like, ooh, that was too edgy for the South.
You
But
mean like
again, I
the Hardee's Super Bowl
yeah,
commercial that time? Yeah, yeah.
exactly that kind of thing. And so I think that the QSR brands have really had to think about how are we showing up in a way where we're not just talking about the food anymore, because again, like the combo meals, the discounting, the value-based offers, like they can only get you so far if at
Mhm.
the end of the day, like you aren't living in their mind. Like if you're not showing up and staying top of mind, and you do that by showing up in the spaces where the consumers are. And so knowing when menus aren't changing, like yes, you can have small product innovations like here and there, but like when the menus aren't changing and you're just constantly chasing whatever the next value offer is for the next window, like that's where brands are losing right now. And so the category is so simple because the product is so simple, but the cultural stakes are huge. And
Mhm.
so
Yep.
we're moving from selling food to selling rituals and routines and moments in people's lives. And I think the brands that are winning at this are ones that are evolving how they're showing up in culture without having to walk away from like what made them special in the first place, right? So, Raising Cane's, I can't tell you how many times like we'll hop on a call with someone and they'll ask about, oh, is Cane's gonna serve breakfast? Are they gonna, is Cane's gonna offer grilled? And we're just like, no, that's not who they are. And their founder, Todd Graves, is so true to that. And I think that continuity and just sticking with, we're going to do one thing and do it better than everyone else is a huge key component of like that consistency that's brought them that massive success. And so I think from an agency vantage point, where we're kind of leaning in is understanding like what the non-negotiables are. So like, what is the core promise of the brand? Is it, quality, speed, value? Is it community? Is it LTOs? Like find what is their core promise, and then what are these signature equities that they have? Maybe it's the product itself. Maybe it's the brand's voice. Maybe it's the founder. Maybe it's the visual, the way they show up in the restaurants. And so I feel like once you know what never changes, that's where you can start thinking about how to be bold with what you can change, right? And so that could be the influencers that you partner with, or the moments you decide to show up in, the formats you use, the partnerships you choose. So there's this constant balance between honoring a simple product-driven foundation with, we make great chicken or we serve the best burgers, and then letting the brand participate in broader cultural conversations. And so when that's done really well, it doesn't feel stunty. It feels like a natural extension of who the brand has always been, right? And so that's something that's really cool to watch, not only with our own clients, but like also the industry as a whole. You're seeing some brands do this really well, and then you see others who are just doing the same old thing, and that's going to be very telling.
It's so wild too. I'll give a shout out to the VP of Marketing, Donna Tuttle at Whataburger. We had her on, and she talks about authenticity and the partnerships and influencers, all the way down to like what products they partner with. Like they do some wild partnerships with like Bruce Bolt batting gloves, which we'll have the founder on our podcast as well. But you're spot on. Like, and if I can brag about Raising Cane's, like I would say all the things you rattled off, like they're all of those. And the way that you guys buy and show up from a media standpoint to the consumer as they go throughout their journey, like my wife thinks about like, okay, leaving from your alma mater, Parkview Baptist, and headed down Sieg, and it's like, okay, fast food, which spot? All right, Raising Cane's, I know that it's going to be, the best possible choice because of, and rattle off all these reasons. And then my kids think it's super cool because when you go in there, they pay homage. So showing up locally, that you guys do a great job with, and the brand itself. But then also there's this like really cool, to your point, like the cultural relevance, and where my kids get excited. They're like, oh, I saw that with, XYZ influencer, where on their Instagram page, it showed up. So I think it can be everything. But from an agency side of things, like it goes back to our initial conversation, like being at the pulse of the client, listening to what they are and how they're evolving. You guys could be a stubborn agency and be like, no, guys, chicken and fries, lemonade, certain times of the year, it turns green. Let's just stick to this. This is what's good brand. But it's been fun. So I love where you said it's like, it feels natural and it's not forced. There are some brands that you were just like, please stop. Like this is, as our kids probably both say, like this is super cringe, like stop.
It's super cringe for sure. I think too, like that's, and again, we can't take any credit for any of that at DAA. Raising Cane's owns their partnerships, and they do it better than anybody. And I think that what we do from an agency perspective is figure out again how to amplify that moment and to get it to be top of mind and seen. And so I think that where we're starting to see a lot more of like experiential come into play, just like in the industry, right? And so one of the things that I think modern marketing is going to be is like how people experience something, not just scroll past, which like, again, why I'm a big fan of out of home. It's an experience, a human experience. You can't miss it. But I think for sure for QSRs, when you can literally like taste the brand and you know what the food is, the offering. It's not really enough to have these like trending poster moments. Like it's about creating moments that people can like live in and like see and observe. And so something really cool that Canes did last year that I thought was really neat was piggybacking on New York Fashion Week at
Yeah.
their restaurant in Times Square, which definitely one of my big career highlights was whenever Canes opened that and we got to buy our first Times Square out of home industry. Like I feel
Super
like that's
cool.
just like an
Yeah.
initiation, right? And so but they hosted this like New York Fashion Week at the restaurant. And so there were gowns that were influenced by the menu and there were influencers modeling them and like just showing up and like not just like doing some social post that like talks about Fashion Week, but like actually living in it and like creating that experience. It's something that they just kill it every time, and I think that that's so fun to be, partnered with a brand like that to see that constant innovation because it's really inspiring to think even like from what we're doing from a paid media perspective to think through like, oh man, thinking big, like what else can we do, like how else can we translate that into the audience. And so they've just done a killer job of understanding their target and knowing who loves them, which is arguably is anybody with a stomach, but like but seriously, I think like that's what's been really cool is to see this real intersection of something that feels intentionally designed and not just like logo slapped. That's like going to be, I think, the next big thing in the industry. These like awesome experiential moments like that.
Yeah, and I think that that's that's the fun part where, I can only speak from out of home, but for us it's like, all right, how do we evolve within this? And how do we take influencers and utilize our media more effectively as the brand kind of it's not pivoting itself, but as to your point, you're helping to assist to tell that story. Like, well, why does this and this make sense? And it's like, okay, so the ability to story tell with media, and I talk about this all the time, like out of home, such a powerful media if you use it correctly. Like we're very visual humans, but we're also very curious. So, if you put XYZ influencer up there and you have the, Raising Canes as an example, Lemonade or Window World and an NIL deal, like it, immediately we're all going to go to, YouTube or we're going to go to Instagram and be like, wait, is there a partnership there? And then to
Yeah.
your point, like we're so driven by culture that it's like, I don't want to say this, but it's kind of right? It's like, oh, I want to be seen there at
Mm-hmm.
XYZ restaurant, or I want to say that I used this product. And that's where culture and influencers, whether micro or macro, out of home plays that huge role because to your point, like I'm all about Instagram, I'm all about the scroll, but our scrolls all look different. But how do I get us straight to the brand? And I think that that's where that fun synergy really happens with out of home and influencers and social. So I would agree with you. That's the next phase.
Yeah, and it's like I've gotten to a point where, um, I'm sure you deal with this too, but it's like your algorithm, it's like so
Oh,
focused to
yep.
just like what the things that thinks you care about, right? Like so mine you mentioned earlier, like I love Pilates and wellness and like that's all I get. And so it's like I still love coffee and I love that. And so it's just like give me an ad for Seven Brew or like but we're
Mhm.
not getting any of those things because the algorithm has decided
Yep.
I don't need that, right? But like I still buy that. That's still part of my daily life, right? And so that again, I think that's where out of home really shines and where it stays having a place in the plans is because you can't pass it. I live in Houston, so I live in like a North Houston suburb, and I, have obviously, my kind of area around me that like I visit, but like when I'm driving around Houston, like I'm passing hundreds of billboards just to get from one place to another, and it's just that constant reminder. And I always pay attention and see like, oh, so and so is on this board, and I'll notice it because it may look different than what my feed has now become. And
Yeah.
so with especially TikTok, I feel like I see like I don't even realize what's an ad anymore, and in a way that's good, but in a way is it good? Because it's like it loses that like attention metric when it becomes just another swipe of the thumb, right? And so I think these breakthrough moments of just like if you're really having a brand that like you have a KPI or an objective of like awareness and top of mind and like wanting to be a household name, like to me, like out of home has to be in the mix. And I think I can say this. I think every single one of our clients that we have at DAA, we're recommending out of home for, and I think it's a part of the mix. And so it's just very human, and it's no algorithm can stop me from seeing that board on, I-45 when I'm driving, into the city. So I think it's
Yeah.
telling.
Yeah. And behind me in my scribbling, I have, we are the anti-algorithm, because I
Yeah.
agree. Like, how
I
do
love
you
that.
show up? And what out of home helps do is it solidifies that brand, and all the brands that you guys represent today and the new clients that you guys continue to go after. It's not a one or the other, it's a and plus, right? And I,
Right.
I, I love this because I was just listening to Bradley Cooper, who may be one of my favorite. Now he's a director as well, just came out with a movie, but absolutely love him. He was on a podcast I was listening to, and he was talking about, Brittany, his early days in LA, where he was so poor. He's a brand new actor trying to break through. He was on this small sitcom. And he said, what I would do is I would, go around town, and I saw all these billboards, and obviously woven within each community. You go to San Francisco, it's nothing but tech or startups. You go to LA, it's nothing but entertainment, and then entertainment combined with QSR restaurants. So his point is like, he's like, everywhere that I go, he lives in New York now. And not that we're friends or anything, like I know where he lives, but his point is like every community, I feel like we would be, but
I
every
feel like
community he goes to is out of home plays such a pivotal role. And from him, it was from a visual storytelling perspective. So I think you're spot on. Like it plays a pivotal role, but it also, it, it, it makes things like real, and it's a part of your life. It's a part of your journey. And then
yeah.
you can grab your phone and go deeper into it.
Yeah,
So
for sure. And I think, okay, I have a question for you. So, like,
yeah.
when you're describing, if a client asks you where out of home sits in the funnel, what's your answer?
So I think it depends, right? I think
Yes.
where do you want to play it, right? So if I put my programmatic hat on, then what I think is like, how do I target, QSR consumers that have an affinity towards, or mom with 2+ kids that are super busy? Then my programmatic hat says like, yes, it sits on this part of the funnel. My other brain says like, you get to be super creative and fun and cool and have, 3D extensions and pop outs, or you get to be in Times Square and just
Hmm.
be bold in a message. So I think it plays in both. How about you?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think like this is something that we think about a lot, especially kind of again working in the QSR space on all the brands I've ever worked on. It's like I think people have really always thought of it as like an awareness channel. And I think though when you put a directional on the board, doesn't that push it into the bottom of the funnel? Like you're
Right.
expecting someone's going to see this board. I'm passing a Chick-fil-A board on my drive from Houston to Baton Rouge, and I see, exit now. That's a call to action. That's a conversion. And so, like,
Mhm.
at that point, like, I think that that becomes bottom of the funnel. And so, it's exactly what you said. It's like, what are you saying? When are you saying it? And what action do you want it to
Mhm.
create? And, like, that I think can help you figure it out. And I think brands that aren't taking advantage of out of home is because they're thinking about it through a very closed mind of this is an awareness channel only, and oh well, I need XYZ, I need website traffic, I need this, purchase online. And I think that they think about it too far up when in reality you're really just one click away from an action at any given moment, whether that's a physical action in the real world or whether that's an online action. And so I love asking that question for
Yeah.
for clients too. It's like, well, where do you think it sits? And so it's always what are we saying, and where do we want it to fall in the journey?
Yeah.
And so that kind of answers it.
Yeah. And last point I'll make is what I look for with Raising Cane's, because I'm completely obsessed. And again, I know DAA doesn't make the chicken and have the experience. Todd, his phenomenal teams, no matter where you go in the US. But what I love what you guys are utilizing with out of home. And look, I follow Canes on their Instagram, follow their YouTube channel. But what I really love is like every football season, baseball season here, where we're LSU's, is I'm looking like, all right, who's the new NIL each
Yeah.
year? And who's their athlete? And then I also look like, all right, who's the next influencer? What is the next unique partnership that you guys are doing? They did a partnership with Hulu, and that show, and they utilize out of home. So for me, you know, Canes does this great job with its partners, its influencers, who they surround themselves for culture. but then the out of home, for me personally, I'm like, oh, hell yeah, quarterback XYZ or Lane
Yeah.
Kiffin or,
Yeah.
who's the new celebrity. And so I think there is this unique touch point that you guys are doing a great job of continuing that story on those partnerships, because it does go well beyond Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah, it's like it's humanizing it, right? And so again, you reach a point. I think all brands kind of reach a point where like people know what you're about. They know who you are, but it's how are you showing up in a way that feels relevant to them, right? And what do you care about?
Yep.
And so I think that. Yeah, I agree. The NIL campaign is one of my favorites, and because again, it's just people get so fired up about it, and like they just love seeing these like hometown heroes be a part of it. And so, there's a lot of confrontation about NIL and people not loving it because of what it's done, but like
Nah.
I think it's great. Like let these
Yeah.
guys let these guys have their moment, and I
Yeah.
think
Let them have their moment.
yeah, it's like giving them the stage for that is so cool. And the brands who are leaning into that space, I think are doing really well. Good, really good work with that.
Yeah. So wrap up here, because as we both said before we hit record, like you and I could talk for hours. Like I consider you a great friend. I always love the time we get to spend with each other. I wish it was more, but on a more personal note. So a couple of wrap up questions. You are extremely passionate about women in leadership. So touch on the Houston chapter of Our Third Place, what that does, and then your participation in Junior League of the Woodlands. And then we're going to finish with a fun Mardi Gras question, because it is
Oh,
Mardi
I
Gras
love
season. Yeah.
Yeah. So, outside of like day to day running an agency, I'm really lucky that I have a ton of amazing women that work at DAA who I've gotten to be a part of almost their whole career path. And they've taught me so much, and we've had this like wonderful relationship. And I think whenever I became when I moved to Houston and became a remote employee 7 years ago, I really missed that. And then I went through the process of becoming a new mom, and going through kind of those first few years, like you're just in the thick of it. And I mean, it's just when I came up for air, I realized like I was missing a space that felt for me. And so you have work, you have home, and then everyone needs a third place. And so there's an organization that was started in New York during the pandemic, but it's basically a global networking group. It's called Our Third Place, and it's for women, and it's founded on the premise of friendship, like that, like yes, we can all work in the industry, in the same industry. It's a media networking group, but it's how are we showing up on the fact that like we're friends? Like it's a no pitch zone. It is like you show up, you come as you are, whether you want to talk about the crappy day at work you had with your manager, or you want to talk about what you're watching on TV, or your boyfriend that you just broke up with. Like it's just meant to be this safe space of where women can kind of come together and have you can be ambitious and vulnerable at the same time. And for me, I was so excited about this group. I pioneered the chapter here in Houston. I'm still the chapter lead, and that's something that I look forward to every single month. I have, these standing dinners where we can kind of come together, and it's always a different group with different passions, different backgrounds, and it's been really, really exciting to be a part of. And I'm super pumped because I have convinced some of my team members in Baton Rouge at DAA to open a chapter in Baton Rouge. So you'll have to get the little
Amazing.
Marley over there for sure.
100%. Yeah. And you can talk about yourself because you're very modest, but I watch I watch Brittany in front of her team, and I watch every time that she speaks, whether it's on a panel or here at coming to Lamar Corporate, like you have their ear. And I think that comes going back to clients trusting the agency and what you've built and what the greater team has built. I see that as last presentation we had when they were all physically here. And when you spoke, everyone's kind of like bought in. So I'm extremely proud of you. This has been so much fun for me because I'm beginning to watch your career kind of blossom, but also watch your stage presence, your speaking opportunities. And I think you're on your path to becoming an icon in such a very unique industry. So as a friend, I'm very proud of you. And as a fellow leader in the out of home space, I'm so blessed and excited to be able to share your story and your journey. And I think it's just the beginning. Yeah, of course. So last question, it's Mardi Gras season. If you don't know what Mardi Gras is, shame on you. Sorry, you don't live here. But Mardi Gras is an iconic historical, look it up, Google it. But the most important thing for Mardi Gras for me, being a very health conscious person, it's the detriment to every morning that I work out is a king cake. So share with us what your favorite king cake is. And I think we share the same sentiment.
Yeah, so I'm a purist, as you can tell. Like, food is like kind of my life, right? Like some from my Food Network dreams to what I do on a daily basis. But this is such a polarizing question. But for me, it's
Yes.
Randazzo's or Gambino's. Like those are my two. I think there's a lot of creative spins out there. I respect the innovation, but like give me a classic slice from either one of those bakeries and I'm happy.
We are the same human. Nana Randazzo, we won't go into the history, but family broke up. It's basically the same king cake. But this is hilarious, and it just popped in my head. For those of you not from New Orleans or from the area, king cakes are the most delectable, most amazing things. It throws my eating habits out the window. But last night, I got an Nana Randazzo king cake. It's sitting in our house, and for our listeners, you can get all sorts of variations of king cakes. To Brittany's point, one of them often has like fillers. So if you want like cream cheese, and that's my wife's favorite. My
Yes.
favorite is the same as yours. And my wife looks over at the king cake. This is the greatest way to end the podcast because she doesn't listen to my podcast. Brittany, she looks over at it. She was like, seriously? She was like, that king cake's trash. She just turned her nose
What?
up at it, which is good because it's more king cake for me.
Yes.
But yeah, she's more of a like adventurous sucre and the others that do fillings and all these things. Yeah.
Those are good. Those are
Yeah,
good too.
sure.
But yeah, just I need it straight up.
Yeah. Give it to me the great way. So,
I'm
um,
gonna ship me one, Ian.
oh, yeah, we'll ship each other one for sure. But I better go home and buy my wife like a legit like filling king cake. So
100%.
yeah. Well, look, this has been fun. Continue our friendship, but for our listeners, follow Brittany. She's on the path. She's a force in the out of home industry and beyond. And I'm excited that we have this partnership with DAA and the new role that you're in, and where you're going to take this agency with Nancy and Donnie into the future. It's exciting to watch. So thank you, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ian. This was a blast.
All right, take care, my friend.